I was in Halifax a couple of weeks ago. It was right as Charlie Kirk thing happened, the assassination. Ugh. And one of the comics was, we were talking about it, and, he was a centrist. He was proud of it. And he was, I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't care either way what happened. He's not important to me. Also, it just feels like more of the simulation. And he was like, "Oh, aren't you worried that people don't care about your empathy?" And it just like kind of hit me that for what this man said and did, it was like, "Oh, I need to care now? Interesting that I have to care about this." Huh. Needless to say, I didn't punch him in the throat. I didn't know how to end this bit. Yeah, I don't know. I guess some people get to be cared and some people don't. And historically, people like me get to, have to feel empathy for people that want me dead. That's dark, isn't it? Ugh. So this week we're talking about Necropolitics, created by Ashal Mimbe. I read this months ago, and then again, it's genius. So Necropolitics is a socio-political theory that examines how social and political power is used to determine who may live and who must die, often creating conditions where certain populations exist in a state of living death. That's quotes. This concept was developed by Ashal Mimbe to analyze contemporary forms of subjugation and the impact of state power on life and death. Okay, so this is like an extension or like a kind of jumping off point from Michel Foucault's Biopower, where he talks about in modern nations, control their populations through who gets through the body, who lives, who gets to die, who it gets born, public health, regulation of hereditary, risk regulation, among many other regulatory mechanisms, often linked less directly with literal physical health. For example, America, you don't have a healthcare system. We do. That's both part of Foucault's idea of biopower. Anyway, so Necropolitics kind of jumps out at that, and I think once you start looking at the world through that idea of who gets to live and who gets to die, or who has a living death, where like in the opening segment of the podcast, I talked about how how we'd like Charlie Kirk, and I was supposed to feel bad for him. Because he was just like, hey, you know what? The civil rights movement was a mistake. And I was supposed to feel, well, all human life is beautiful. I know there's going to be people in the comments that hate me for saying this stuff, but you could see this play out. And in politics, especially during campaigns, you can see the necropolitics play out where women's bodies, with birth control and abortion and immigrants and black people all are on the table for discussion. In August 3rd, 1980, Ronald Reagan announced his campaign in Mississippi. Or no, I don't think, no, he didn't announce his campaign, but he appeared in the Neshoba County Fair in Mississippi to give a speech on states' rights. And this was the same location where three civil rights activists were murdered. It's based off the movie. The movie's based. They didn't base the murders off the movie, but the movie Mississippi Burning is based off those things: Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner. And so that was the idea of states' rights and wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and civil rights and all this kind of stuff after the Southern Switch, which again was another idea of biopolitics, necropolitics, where an entire side of the political spectrum moved over to the right because black people got rights, became human, and that was a bridge too far. And we see that kind of play out all the time in liberal democracy, where like we expect marginalized people to wait their turn to progress is coming. Progress is coming. I remember talking to a dude. I think I talked about this. How he was. We were talking about some protesters down in our city who were like, against immigration, and they had masks on and stuff. And I mean, that's a whole ball of wax. But like that, and then he was like, "Oh, anyone that wears a mask should be imprisoned." And I was like, "Well, okay, that's fair. I see what you're saying." But there's these people who are neo Nazis, and then there's like Antifa. He's like, "Oh, they're all the same to me. They're all neo Nazis." And I was like, "Okay, but because I've dealt with liberals, I'm like, okay, but one broke windows, because that's what happened. They broke windows on one of the streets of like shop owners, which I get it. You're upset about that, and the other one wants immigrants dead. And he's like, it's all the same to me. And it's like that. You live in this world where you get to be a part of the state and get to decide who gets violence and who doesn't get violence. And I that was fascinating. It was interesting, to say the least. Like, I realized like everyone was like, oh, Jimmy Kimmel and the freedom of speech, and like how horrible that was, and how quickly people sprang into action to do this. But like, that has been going on forever, right? Like that concept of freedom of speech is a very liberal, a very privileged position, because we've watched COINTELPRO, we've watched indigenous people here in this country get kidnapped from their families and have their identities be forcibly erased through violence. And like this and homeless people in these cities who are like pushed around and moved out of public spaces and stuff like that, and we ignore it. We just kind of like, that's terrible, but it is what it is, right? And then Jimmy Kimmel loses his TV show, which I'm not trying to say isn't bad, but it's like, we gotta do something now. Because again, it's like, we're going back to Joker, right? Where he's like, he decides who lives and dies, right? When like, what did Joker say? He says like, a van full of soldiers gets blown up, and that's part of the plan. But you threaten one politician, and all of a sudden it falls apart. I'm not quoting him properly. I should slip it in here at some point. But yeah, you know what I'm saying, right? It's we accept those kind of terms and we don't question it because the contradictions are weird. Like also, like, is Palestinian protesters and advocates have been disappearing, or in Canada the journalists have been silenced or fired, and we still deal with these news organizations, and we just kind of accept what it's like. I worked a comedy club where I was told that like nobody's gonna want to watch what I do. I live in Canada. I work this chain of comedy clubs. I think you know what I'm talking about. Where I was told when I got promoted from an amateur to a pro that nobody really is gonna want to watch what I do. I proved that wrong. And then an article came out, and the owner was saying how he can't put more than one black comic on stage, like women. And like women comics, because that's a style, and that's, people, his audiences will get confused. It's too many of the same things on stage, so he has to keep it diverse by putting all white guys on. And it's in that where like I get objectified, or people who are marginalized get objectified into a style of comedy, and it's acceptable. It's fine. I remember one time walking into a clinic and I had joint pain in my knee. I really wanted to get off my job. Like I hated the job, and I was trying to look for like some sort of stress pain. But I did have joint pain in my knee, and it was clicking and hurting. And because my job was like I was working in a factory, and I had to like wrap things really quickly, and my leg was hurting. And then before the doctor even talked to me, he came in and just like rubbed my gut, and he's like, "This is your problem," and I was like, "What the fuck?" Like he just came in and was like, "This is your problem." And it's just the arrogance of not talking, not knowing anything about me, nothing. It was a free clinic, one of those, walk-in clinics, not free clinic, walk-in clinics. And he just rubbed my gut. Like just like, like I was the Pillsbury Doughboy. Yeah, and he just like, this is your problem. I think he knew I was pissed after that. But another form of necropolitics. It's like, okay, you're fat. You can't have things wrong with you. It must be fat. I mean, this is why I don't agree with people when they tell me when they talk about democracy. I feel it's such a like a privileged position to be like, oh, like everyone's talking about how fascism is taking over. It's like, when was this country not fascist, or at least close to it? Like, we've been all over the world overthrowing governments and installing puppet dictators, and treating segments of the population less than human. When has it ever been anything but that? That is a very privileged position to be arguing for free speech and blah 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 blah, right? Right, people. I always talk to people centrists, and they're always like, "Oh, well, go back. Remember when? Remember when the good times were back when what? Jim Crow? Back when we were like residential schools." I had a person talk to me this week who was like, "Oh, business used to be different in like the 1700s. There was less bloodshed," and I'm like, "Oh, have you heard of Haiti? Like, what are you talking about?" What do you, it is this is why like companies like Palantir scare the hell out of me with their prediction tech. Because we barely have free thought now. Could you imagine what's gonna happen when they decide they can just like, oh, what's that movie? That scary futuristic where the precogs do their, they sit in the bathtubs, and then they fart out someone's gonna commit a crime. Just imagine that. Like, so this is what terrifies me, is all that predictive text, predictive algorithmic businesses like Palantir, where they're like, we're gonna put police in the future. And it's like, like they're gonna like spy on our thoughts. And like, I have intrusive thoughts all the time. I think most people do. Like, I have this thing where I'm like, every time I pick up my dog shit, I have an urge to use the hand without the bag. Could you imagine explaining to my family why I'm in jail? Because I'm picking up dog shit with my regular hand? Or they thought that? I don't know if that would be a thing, but I feel like that would be a thing under Palantir. Or like, or like people find out that you'll have that thought, and it gets out, and then you get like, oh, this video gets demonetized, or like or I get fired from a job or something because I pick up dog shit in my head with my good hand or my free hand. Times are scary. I think this book, Necropolitics, is really important because I think it, like, we all need to see the reality of the system. Like, we just kind of skate over the contradictions, and I don't think we do it in a malicious way. I think it is just a coping mechanism. But like, something like this book brings to account, it makes visible this idea, right? Where we're fine. Like I talked about Riyadh Comedy Festival last episode. And that's they murdered a journalist, and we all just kind of brush that aside. Or Epstein files. Where's the Epstein files? Right? And it's just gonna get brushed aside. Yeah, I don't know. Tell me what you think. Leave a comment in the comment section. I'm saying this better and better every week. I'm proud of myself.